Adulthood, Part 3. Let's get into it. Hello all. Willingly everybody is well? Alright then. This is Part 3 of my story, Adulthood. I've talked about my teenage years, to a good extent talked about the early childhood years. So, now let's get on to adulthood. I decided that I was going to talk about the trans thing as a separate video after I tell my complete story. I know that I said last time that I was going to talk about the trans stuff this time, but it's its own video, so there's no purpose in doing all of that now. I'll get there, and that video is going to be quite long. It's not going to be short by any means. The last video I made was pretty long. Let's see what happens. So I graduated community college in 2011, technically May of 2011. My last semester was in 2010. I took some credits, which actually I think is I took credits by myself, or like a or credits just on my own learning, and got credit for it. I took one class, and that was what class was it? It wasn't philosophy. It was some kind of metaphysics. That's what it was. I was thinking physics, and it was like I was thinking philosophical. This is metaphysics. That's what the class was at the time. And I took a self-learning course, and that was all I took for the final semester. I was in oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. No, dang, that's the wrong thing. Wow. Now, my final semester in community college was different. I took intro to philosophy, and that was basically the final semester. That was back in 2007. I'm all the way up here in 2010 when I graduated. Oopsie daisy. Well, it's still final. What do you know? It'd have to you're trying to tell the story off the top of your head. I don't have any of this written down. I mean, I have it written down in book form, not in video form. I just wanted to share it via video form because it's a fun thing to do. And it keeps my memory sharp, too. That's why I'm doing it this way. So here we are in 2007, December. Hello, Zara. How's it going? And I took Introduction to Philosophy. And that was basically the only class I had. I had to confirm my major for the remaining time. Once you're 45 credits, it's time to start thinking about graduation. This time I actually did walk across the stage. I didn't want to, but my father made me because it was important. So and I'm the father, so you have to do it, and I did it. I didn't see the purpose of it, but hey, it was important back in the day. And the only thing I didn't find out until later was that school didn't amount to much when I was going. It was a good thing for its time frame, and if I would have done it quickly and did it for 4 years and got out, then it would have mattered more. But since I took my sweet ass time doing it, school didn't really matter as much as it could have. It's what I thought I wanted because I was under the illusion that, if I went to college, it would have gotten me a better job. Little did I know it held no weight when I got out. But either way, I graduated community college and then went off to Mount St. Mary's University in Emmitsburg. Before deciding to go there, I actually took a little bit of a ride down to McDaniel College in Westminster, Maryland. They didn't really get back to us on a lot of things, and that fell through. Because at first I thought I wanted to go into the whole computer field, do something with computers, make websites, or do computer programming. Until I was looking at Village Julie College, now called Stevenson College, or it's been called Stevenson for quite a while, but it was called Village Julie back then. I think they just changed the name to Stevenson right after I went to a seminar somewhere. But I met with somebody, saw me. I told him what I wanted to do. He was like, well, what are you doing here? This is all computer stuff. If you want philosophy or arts, then Mount St. Mary's is probably your best bet. And Mount St. Mary's was a private school. Obviously, by the name, it was a, I guess, Catholic-based, but you didn't have to be Catholic to go there. Theology was a requirement that everybody took. It didn't matter whether, you're a Hindu religion, Shintoism, didn't matter, Buddhist, everybody took theology, so everybody took the foundations of the whole thing, of, I guess, Western religion, Judaism, Christianity. But I didn't end up taking that until much later when I was there. So I went in 2008. I was using a wheelchair to get around instead of using the walker with carrying my book bag around because I was seen as being too heavy for me. So my father would push me from class to class while he did work for the driving school at his business. I was part of that too, but nowhere near as much as I should have. Honestly, we should have sold the driving school back in 2008 when I went to full-time college. We shouldn't have hung on to it as much as we did. The only reason my father opened up a driving school is because he wanted to help people like me get their license, because he didn't like the whole idea that there was nobody for people like me to get their license. But it ended up, he didn't really end up going the handicap route. He ended up just taking the classes to get certified as a teacher and just opened up his classroom in Westminster. He could only teach 13 people at a time. It didn't really do bad. We didn't do bad in business. We just broke even on the thing. I wasn't really into it. He was, very business focused anyway. That's all his life was all about, was business. He was more of a businessman than he was a father, to be honest. I'm shocked that I was even born. My brother too. That was just purely insane. As much as business oriented as he was, it's amazing that I'm even in this world right now. But he ran the business more or less. He did pretty good, but when we sold it in 2011 to a guy that was supposed to teach it with his wife, he ended up being a bum, not paying us the full amount for it. And then just kind of dumping everything, kind of ran off, didn't do much, and we didn't get paid for the stuff we were supposed to, even though he promised, and we got ripped off in that sense. But as far as like the business itself, we never really lost money. We just broke even the majority of the time. Basically, I look at it like this: if I would have never gone to full-time college or full-time university, then I think the school would have remained. We probably could have sold it to somebody else better and made more money that way. My father put a lot of faith and he bet his whole retirement on me getting a good job when I got out of college. I majored in philosophy eventually. And I did the work, but I was frustrated as all get out, as hell as I could say. I didn't really want to do the work. The only thing that kept me going was the fact that I needed college to get a good job and get good pay when I got out. That's what kept me going. There were some interesting classes I took, some interesting things within the classes I took, but honestly, I should have never went. I can't really say that because if I never would have went, then things would not have turned out the way that they did. But from that standpoint, I should not have went because I didn't want to get educated. I didn't go for me. I didn't go for my betterment. I went to get a better job, which I'm sure a lot of people did at that time. I got tutors for statistics and other math courses that I took that was required or that were required. I had a tutor for my logic class and philosophy. If A, then B, not B, not A. That kind of formal logic that the lawyers use a lot of the time to say what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But these were my darkest days because I had a negative attitude. I got a lot of urinary tract infections. Well, not a lot. I would say a good chunk of it. That started around 2005, 2006, and went all the way up to 2010. Once my gender dysphoria came back, then that kind of also played into things. I still maintained, a fine level, but I was, down. I wasn't clinically depressed. I didn't take any pills for it, but let's face it, I didn't like my life during this 3 to 5 year stint. It was the most negative part of my life. Because all I ever did was, go to school, then do homework at home. Sometimes I even gave up eating to do homework at home. Not to mention I didn't take my blessing that hey, I didn't have to go to a job to pay for my college. Some people have student loans, but then again I didn't have an awareness back then. Hello Janet Byron, how's it going? That's the way my life was though. I mean I got on the honor roll most semesters, or the dean's list most semesters. I lost out one semester because I got a B minus instead of a regular B. So instead of getting a 3.4 GPA average for the semester, I got 3.35. Hello Lisa. Thank you so much for showing up on the live earlier with me and Ria. But I just wasn't happy at all. I had no real complaints, I guess, but I just wasn't happy. All it was school, home, school, homework. Go to school, then do homework. We rode an hour, to the school and an hour back home. So I was fortunate in that sense that I didn't pay to stay there. I'm doing alright, just telling them the story about my adulthood. I didn't really make any friends because all I was focused on was getting better grades, with learning the stuff to get out of there. That's what I was focused on. I wasn't caring about what anybody else was doing. Even my father we started to get into arguments because he wanted to do driving school stuff, and I said I couldn't go with him to do driving school stuff because I had homework to do. And he even mentioned, that there's other stuff besides my schoolwork, and, I had to stop being so selfish. Not that I was trying to be, but that's the way it was. I was a bullet point asshole at this point in my life, at this time frame, or during this time. I was an asshole. Not that I was really trying to be one, but I was. I was selfish. All I cared about with me was not failing the courses. That's one thing that I never got through in school. I always feared of failure, feared of failing out of school all the time and being a failure in life. Little did I know that school wouldn't amount to much, and that I would have to do it myself anyway. Because when summers hit, I never really did study on what else I wanted to do, where I wanted to take my degree. I just knew, once I had the degree, then the right job and the right doors would open for me, just like they did with everybody else. At least that's what the whole rhyme was. That's not just me that did that kind of thing. That baby boomer generation taught all that stuff. Because that's the idea of go to school, get a degree, and the right doors and the right thing will open up for you. You'll be getting paid X amount of dollars when you get out of college. That's the whole rhyme that the high schools and everything else, everybody told us. Because that's the era that I grew up in. And I know that mentality still persists today, although it's not as prevalent as it was. While I was going to school, a digital age happened. I mean, it was happening even before then. Back in 2001 to 2003, it was happening. Hello, Laura. How are you doing? A digital age was happening where things were changing and people didn't need degrees like they used to. I didn't notice it because I wanted to do things the traditional way. I wanted it to be like everybody else. Well, here we are. I am like everybody else. I have my degree. Not in my current name, mind you, but I have my degree. I graduated university in May of 2011 because there's only one graduation per year. I finished in 2010, December of 2010. So it's been 9 years since I've been finished with secondary school. I can't believe that next year will be my 10th anniversary. Thank you so much. Thank you for stopping by. And when I got out of college, the real shit hit the fan, so to speak. I know I shouldn't curse, but hey, what more can I say? I realized that school didn't amount to much because everybody went to college. Everybody did that stuff. So I didn't even try to network with people really. All I did is go to job boards, apply, because that was the thing back then. That's what they told you to do. When I was told, oh, it's going to be hard because it's not like it was back then. Little did I know that there was LinkedIn out there, and I didn't really use LinkedIn too much, if at all. Not that I can remember. I applied for every job that I could, and went on a lot of interviews that I had no business going on. My father drove me to these interviews, and for 2 years it took me to find a job. I finally landed a position at Baltimore Gas and Electric in May of 2013. I got a few other minor positions around that were just by the day. I did some packaging work for the Baltimore Science Center, I think it was. No, not Science Center. What's that center called? I forget what center it's called. The Baltimore Information Center, something. They wanted to package pamphlets together for some kind of gay meeting they were having, or a meeting to in regards to gay rights. Then I had a job or worked temporarily for Learning Systems for 3 days, taking all these iLearn computers, plugging the battery in, making sure that they work, making sure that other parts worked, put them away, put them back in again. And I even worked through lunch to show how much tenacity I had so that they would hire me full time. That never did happen. Then I found work at LFK Products, working from home, selling free trial products such as Gamefly, Equifax, and Discover Card. So I would put ads out on Craigslist to try free trial products. I would teach them how to sign up to these certain websites that were there. And then once they would sign up, I would get paid on commission for that. I made $100 doing that kind of thing. My father also landed me a position, or landed me an opportunity to write for an online magazine called Examiner.com. I wrote about video games. It was a paid on traffic deal, so the more traffic I generated to my articles, the more I would get paid for doing it. But in order to get paid a good bit, you had to really drive a whole lot of traffic to your articles, and they had to be relevant, and they had to be Baltimore-centric for the most part. I mean, they didn't have to be, but you got more money if it was Baltimore-centric, and if that's the case, or if that's what transpired. But since video games, for the most part, weren't Baltimore-centric, and that's what I was hired to write about, I didn't make a whole lot of money doing that. And I didn't get a whole lot of people clicking on my article. I mean, I guess I got a good chunk, but it wasn't enough to make a good amount of money, and hardly anybody commented on anything I wrote. That's also because a lot of the things I wrote about weren't, were not reviews. And the review I wrote, actually there was like one review I wrote, and that was for Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception. Back when that came out in 2011, about a couple of weeks after that came out, I managed to get the game for $40, and then at $40 that I paid, I eventually got back because of some fault. I mean, the game still worked, so I still got the game basically almost for free. I wrote about it and got a good amount of traffic on that, and then that's when I learned, oh hey, in order to actually get paid doing this, you need to keep current with the material that's out there. And basically with the money that I'm earning doing this, that would just go towards paying to write about video games, and therefore that's not very profitable. I would keep having to buy the newest game, do reviews on it, and then get paid that way, which then would just, I would break even all the time. I eventually quit that job, and then got the job for Baltimore Gas and Electric. I thought, how cool, I'm going to get paid $15 an hour and work so many hours a day, which didn't bother me at the time because I was single. I didn't really have anybody to come home to. And I would just take outage calls, collections calls, gas leak calls. That was basically my whole thing. And people would yell at me all the time, say that I wasn't from Baltimore, that I had a horrible accent, even though I lived here all my life. Because your voice sounds different on a headset, a cheap headset at that, through their system than it does in real life. So it's just kind of funny that not only the Americans would make fun of me, but also people that weren't even from the country would make fun of my accent. And even the Chinese people would call and be like, you have a terrible accent. You live there? Yeah, right, I don't believe that. Which Americas do you live at? You're not from here, you're a foreigner. But that's what they would tell me. I became a full-time employee with Baltimore Gas and Electric in 2014, so I no longer had a contract position, which was a good thing. I got better benefits. Then in 2015, I decided to actually dress the gender that I wanted to be perceived as, and then change my name and all of that stuff. But that's a different that's, again, like I said before, that's a different video. I'll go into that in more detail in a different video. My father's health declined. He couldn't really pick me up from work anymore, at least back in April 2015. He actually had to go to the hospital in Frederick with his girlfriend at the time. That's who he was seeing. And I tried to get my own transportation. That worked for a little bit. Then the guy that I hired that was pretty good for the first 3 months I had him, then he didn't seem to do anything and became unreliable. Then my father started driving me again. And then eventually, in 2015, my teeth started to rot out because of all the stress. I wasn't really eating dinner anymore because of the long work hours. I was working 11 hours a day. And they made people stay too. It wasn't like I signed up for 11 hours a day. It was more of, if there's still calls in queue, then you're automatically having mandatory overtime. And because you work for the electric company, because then we can make you, and that's okay. Yeah, I eventually made $50,000 a year, but at what cost? Then I started feeling pain in my teeth around like late October, early November. I didn't know what was going on. I thought it was just like regular sickness that would subside. And then in middle of December of 2015, I got an infection, had to get my teeth pulled out. and I had to take a month off work to heal from that. Once I got back to work, which was the day after Martin Luther King Day, or the day before it, I forget which one. Then a storm hits the Baltimore area. You're welcome, Tash. I'm glad you're enjoying my story. I know it seems a little flip-floppy. I'll fill in the details for the other stuff a little bit later because I want to focus, on that stuff all in one video instead of flip-flopping like I was in the first two videos a little bit. But storm duty happened. We just fine. We rode on buses that didn't have seatbelts. I went, we all stayed in a hotel. They said that, and then I eventually got kicked off of storm duty because of how long it took for them to get me inside the building due to having 12 feet of snow on the ground. That's when I realized then that I needed to find another job. What ended up transpiring is that I was sent to the DoubleTree, which is part of the Hilton branch, which was a pretty good hotel. Then their heating system got busted, so I got transferred to the Hilton in Owings Mills, which is fine because that's where I lived anyway. My father was snowed in; he couldn't come get me, and since as far as storm duty is concerned, as far as power outages is concerned, there wasn't a whole lot of them. And so the company got back to work and almost threatened to not pay for my extra nights in the hotel because I couldn't go home because of the snow on the ground, and we lived in a cul-de-sac, so my father couldn't come get me. Luckily, my supervisor stuck up for me, and the company paid for the extra nights to stay at the hotel until the snow melted enough for my father to come get me. But then I realized that I wasn't valued at the company. I had to get out of there. Something had to be done. Well, I was too scared to do anything. And then right after, it ended up that I had 2 weeks of vacation in June, or late May, early June. Because we would choose our vacation weeks. We would just pick weeks we would want vacation. They didn't want too many people going on vacation at one time, so it was kind of the luck of the draw. And so, as luck would have it, or not have it, whichever way you want to look at it, I had the last week of May and the first week of June off. Once I took off, all my illnesses went away. All my problems with my teeth, all the problems with coughing and sneezing and having little illnesses all the time. Because after my teeth got pulled, I got sick quite often. I started coughing a lot, and I got ill a lot. The company started to complain and say that there was strikes up against me because of how many sick days I've taken. And then on July 7th, my father took me to work. He turned himself into the hospital because of how he was feeling. Then when I got out of work, I didn't realize what was going on. I had to take a cab home because I didn't realize that he went to the hospital. He went to the doctor, and then the doctor told him to go to the hospital. I didn't realize that, so I took a cab home. After an hour of waiting for him to pick me up, I eventually called the police to find my father. It turned out that he was in Northwest Hospital. He told the head nurse not to tell anybody where he was. And then on July 22nd, 2016, he passed away. After he passed away, it was brought to my attention, or it came to my attention, that my father canceled out his death benefits to pay off the loans for the house back in October of 2014. So I had to get out of the house, and I had to get out rather quickly. It took me a year to get out of the house because I dragged my feet on that. But this is where I'm going to cut this video off, not for brevity purposes, but I'm going to talk about my spiritual awakening in another video as well. That deserves to have its own video. So I guess this is where I'm going to end the adulthood video, and then tomorrow I'll be back with the trans aspect of my life, which will fill in a lot of the gaps that are left here. And then Friday, I'm going to do some readings. Let's say 1 p.m. Pacific time, I'll come here and do some readings for everybody. That way people that don't know my skills or haven't seen me do readings before can experience that. It's not going to be any specific type. It's going to just be regular information readings, but if songs do come through, then I will sing them. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate those who stopped by. Then we're thinking that'll be Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about my gender transition, which will definitely be a longer video. And then maybe I'll throw in some tidbits about vacationing in Ocean City, Maryland. I didn't talk about that too much. Thank you all for watching. Keep pushing forward and stay epic.